Womb to Womb, a podcast dedicated to energetic and shamanic womb healing, manifesting sacred relationships and embodying our golden age blueprint, with your host, Diana Beaulieu. Welcome to Womb. I'm your host, Diana Beaulieu, and on today's episode, I am delighted to be with Amelia Jayne, founder of Mystique Temple Arts, to discuss the importance of spiritual discernment when it comes to receiving or learning an energetic healing modality. And we will be diving deep into the topics of the false light construct, matrix plugins, and guru templates. Before we dive into this juicy topic, I'd like to introduce Amelia Jayne. She is an internationally acclaimed energetic healer, a modern-day seer, an astral shaman, and a womb activator located in Perth, Australia. She is celebrated as the multidimensional healer's healer, having spent years working in the fields of womb activation and spiritual ascension. In 2018, she founded the Mystique School of Temple Arts, a spiritual school that teaches people how to accelerate their supernatural gifts. A passionate advocate for sexual alchemy and sacred union love, she spends her time teaching women how to remember their sexual essence, awaken as a woman, and attract their heart's deepest desires. Hello and welcome, Amelia.
Hello, Diana, and thank you for having me today. I'm pleased and honored to be here.
I'm really happy you're here today. I think this is going to be an amazing conversation. And you're somebody I've admired for a very long time, ever since I've known you. And I'm really honored that we're going to speak together. So Amelia, tell us a little bit more about yourself on a personal level and how you came to discover all your multidimensional seeing and healing gifts.
Oh, that's a very interesting and long and layered question. But ultimately, it started when my father passed away when I was 9, and I started to see his face everywhere for about a week and began to realize very quickly that I had abilities that other people did not, and also struggled at the time of sharing that truth. So in my younger years, I kept those abilities in lockdown for quite a few years. But during that process of developing through my teens into young womanhood, I would see ghosts. I would be very energetically sensitive to people, and I could not understand why at the point where I could feel and see things that other people could not. So when I guess, was in my life crisis when I was 40, I was going through a divorce and started some spiritual healing modalities. Ultimately, I started with the womb work, and I just felt myself open up in my own transformation that I felt a real deep calling to help others. And I began my journey to train in other energetic healing modalities, which is how we met as well. And from that place, when I started working with clients, that's when the vision started to appear, the multidimensional started to appear. I could see things that other people couldn't. And the sessions and spirit very quickly led me on a path of my ultimate evolution to be the spiritual healer that I am today.
Thank you so much for sharing. That is a beautiful story, Amelia. And I think a lot of people will resonate with you who've really discovered their gifts from a life event or a particular period of their life. And then, I'm aware of many people who struggle with that along the way. It's not easy, but you're a beautiful example of somebody who has really garnered those gifts and really grounded those gifts to create an incredible service to humanity with your work.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So there is so much we could talk about, Amelia, in terms of your work and what you do. But what we've come to talk today about is how we can be spiritually discerning when it comes to this vast array and offering that we have in the world right now of energetic healing and energetic evolutionary work. So I would be very honored if you'd give our listeners an introduction into the concepts that we're going to be speaking about today, including the false light construct, the matrix plugins, and the guru templates.
Oh, amazing. I'd love to talk about that. And I hope the listeners have got a bit of time to really listen and take notes if they wish to in what we're going to be talking about. And in a nutshell, the false light is a construct that was designed by the NAA, which is the nefarious agenda, the negative alien agenda. It's, if you could imagine, it's behind humanity's surveillance of data collection, of all of our thoughts and our things and our processes, which collect artificial intelligence to then help sever our connection to our own source, to our own God, our own Holy Trinity. And in that process, we are disconnected from our soul matrix, which is our intuition, our knowing, our, we can feel God, we can see God, we can hear God, and ultimately our spiritual gifts that we have with that. Because if we are connected to spirit, we are powerful, we can make change. And the negative agendas that are at play on the earth realm, they can no longer control us, which humanity as a whole has been enslaved for thousands and thousands of years. And these, if you can imagine, these artificial intelligence systems, they create what I like to call false light, which is mind control devices, which may seem real. So sometimes when we feel trauma, when we're activating our gifts, we have a memory that we may have been on a planet, but is it our actual memory, or is it a propaganded holographic insert that's been placed by one of these agendas? And these structures from these agendas and this energy and these thought processes, they sit in our physical bodies, they sit in our emotions, and they sit in our souls as well. And that part of our memory system, I like to call, is the soul matrix, which links to the spirit body as one piece and links to the avatar of, who we are as a person and our multidimensional nature in itself. Because previously on earth, my understanding and my belief is that we all are born supernatural beings and we cross the forgotten bridge to come onto earth for incarnation to experience life. So all of our memories and all of our, gifts and our ascension journeys, our timelines, whether we've been here once, whether we've been here 1,000 times before, when we sign the contract to come to earth, we get those memories wiped, because our journey is obviously, as a soul perspective, is to clear the distortion in our field so we can re-experience all there is to be human, to ultimately journey back to God's source, to love, so we can feel him in our heart. So from the negative alien agenda's point of view, that's not a good thing for them. They don't want us to ascend. They want us to stay in pain. They want us to be not owning who we are on a soul level, on a multidimensional level. And these mind control systems, which are matrix, they can be guru templates, they can be false light. What they're ultimately doing is designed to manipulate our energy bodies. So we start to think things that are not ours. And we feel fear, we feel grief, we feel pain, we feel trauma. Some of it we remember in this existence, others we remember previously stored in our bodies from other timelines that we have yet to access. So when you mix this sort of invasion together with our soul matrix, so to speak, we can't connect to our own soul's truth because it's distorted.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And what's interesting to me is to ask, how might that show up, let's say, in perhaps a religion or a spiritual path or a healing system?
Yeah, in that particular place, I like to call that a mismatch of soul. That these agendas, they don't want us to see God, to feel God, to receive God, because we feel God in our heart. So these programs, if you could imagine like a virus, like an artificial server that runs around the internet, but in this case, it's running around the collective consciousness of humans to say that there is no soul, soul doesn't exist, there is no consciousness, there is no such thing as ascension. We just are born and we die, which some religions have various reflections of that. And that, to me, you could sort of take that a bit further as to where the devil and Lucifer and God comes in those sorts of wars, because they are patronizing God as an evil force in some religions because they don't want us to believe that God exists. But ultimately, what is God consciousness? What is God? My firm belief is God is love, regardless of whether you're Buddhist, whether you're Christian, whether you're Catholic. And if the whole planet is vibrating at love, where we are connected to our own source and our own divinity, we have the ultimate power over ourselves and our being and our sovereignty. And the agendas of these darker forces, including the governments and all these things that are happening on the planet right now, they will cease to exist because there's no power anymore, because we're all at high vibrational frequencies and realities. And, to take it a step further, these agendas, when they're playing the space of God is bad, and different things, it creates like a computer chip that goes into our minds that we get to play, which then we go into different groups or bubbles of thought processes. So, there's always like the scientist and the magician as an example. The scientists believe on facts, where the magicians go, well, it's spiritual, it's energetic. It just is, right? And there's a constant divide that's been caused to create disharmony between all types of people and races and species. And that ultimately feeds the agenda of divide and disconnection and not going back to God's source. And that impacts our DNA on a deep cellular level. Yeah, it's really like, you can go really, really deep and really, really layered into the concepts around this, but in a nutshell, we get separated through these agendas from our own soul DNA. Our memories that are linked to the lineages that we have these spiritual gifts from, no matter how many times you've been here before, they get wiped and they get fragmented. And then we can't remember who we are on a deep soul level, irrespective of what culture we're from, what country we're from, what race we're from. The memories get deleted or distorted. So then half of our journey in spiritual ascension is retrieving those memories and waking up what we have, because they've been corrupted and shut down, like a virus chip's been put into our systems. And that goes into our energy bodies, into our soul, into our cellular structures, into our light bodies. And then, it gets pretty involved in the ascension process, as you know.
Yes, thank you for explaining that, Amelia. And when you talk about that, what comes up for me is remembering, and then also realizing that this is still ongoing for me, is the presence of negative implants in my body. So I think I've probably spent at least the last 10 years periodically having multidimensional layers in my body, which were around implanted, sort of, basically, I would call it 4D tech, but we can call it what we like. It's kind of a technology that's operating on a subtle level in the body. And it's doing all sorts of things to, for example, keep your nervous system in a fight or flight mechanism, to cut you off from different gifts that you may have. For example, encapsulating your pineal gland or your heart and making sure that you don't have a full connection to them. And the breadth and complexity of those implants alone is quite staggering. Do you consider that to be part of the false light construct that you're talking about here?
It's part of the chipping process, because the chips and the etherical implants and the energetic implants, there's also mind control devices and karmic loops and programs. These they go into your mind for your processing your thoughts. They go into your energetic layers. They go into your auric field layers. They go into your chakras. They go into your meridian systems. They also go into your organs as well, which get passed on through DNA, ancestral, family line changes as well. Because if any part of our system is carrying one of those chips, that can show up as disease. It can show up as a mental health issue, energetic imbalances in the body, and stopping physical ascension. And that's one of the pieces that I've really been journeying heavily with in my own self, is this not only goes through your physical body, but your quantum body, but it goes up to the quantum field and the abundance fields. Every layer of your system can get impacted by these chips. And that's even before we then go into interpersonal relationships, when we have conversations with people that may be a fight, and there's energetic tethers that get connected between each other. That's a whole nother layer as well, which, those implants get put into our field too, on top of the alien implants that get there. And some of the implants are there when we're born. Some of them are placed in our light bodies only. So when we activate our spiritual gifts, we have to then go into the light bodies and pull those implants out. And they're basically, if you can imagine, they're stopping the energy expanding to the full capacity. They're stopping your emotional bodies to tuning into the source download information as well. And they're stopping your body holding a high frequency, so you can channel with ease and grace and not burn yourself out. So it's quite involved, the level of destruction that these implants can do. And it's probably really important, I think, as well, to talk about how do people know if they are under these implants and constraints as well. And I know our conversation was going to be around the modalities as well, but whether we want to talk about that now or later, that's up to you. But the first thing I sort of think that's really an easy way for any person to know is if they're suddenly starting a modality and they're getting excessively tired and feeling like they're drained, really check in, because it could be that it's activating trauma in that work, and that's what you're processing from a healing perspective. It could be that they have plugged into your field and they're siphoning your life force energy, which is a pretty big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Amelia. And when you talk about the siphoning of life force energy, I think that's when we can circle back to spiritual paths,
Yeah,
because I've done a lot of thinking and research and had a lot of personal experiences around how this kind of implanted technology can relate to certain spiritual paths, which are ostensibly there to empower you, but are actually their energetic purpose is to take your life force energy and funnel it into something. And
yeah,
so it's very important when you're thinking about being in a spiritual path, or you have a guru, or you have a teacher, or you're following a particular, perhaps channeled being who is claiming to be a being of light. That's a big part of this, is to ask yourself, is this path or is this person constantly asking me to come back to myself and find my own power within me? Or are they actually inviting me constantly to give my attention to them, as though I might be the source of their enlightenment, the source of their love,
yeah.
etc., etc.? And then what I've seen on a multidimensional level is literally feeding tubes that might go through gurus or
Mm.
teachers or practitioners, and they are feeding up to something. And this is where we get into the more complex and invisible layers of the matrix. So,
Yeah.
we have these visible layers through a path or a spiritual school or a particular individual, and then that is feeding into something else.
It's a big dive in that space. I mean, and it's good an example that you've given there. I've worked with some clients unplugging. There's one particular modality which I won't mention names just because it is what it is. But I saw a dark energetic being that was actually feeding off the whole entire grid of the actual modality that was being implemented and taught worldwide. And what that meant was that the creator of the modality, she was probably influenced by false light mind control devices. There's one or two things that I feel about this is when she created the light, that the modality, that it was so pure that the forces came in to try and check it out. So they corrupted the original teachings. But I see it as like a grid, like a matrix, like an architecture where there's like a box, and then every person that gets trained in the modality gets plugged into the network, so to speak. And if there's a dark being on top of that and whole entire network, every person that uses that modality will then get drained of their life force while they're actively practicing. And then their clients will actually get fed through that system too. And that's where the chipping and the implants that you're referring to can happen as well. Because when these sorts of infiltrations happen, I like to say they use what's called a tracking device, which is like an etherical chip to go, we've been here, we've tagged you before, we'll find you again down the track if we need to. And they're like black hoses, they're like energetic cords that are designed to firstly drain life force of the people that are trained in the modality. And the bigger that reach goes, the more disruption of the artificial intelligence that gets spread and goes worldwide very, very quickly. And here's the trick is you think you're in absolute service to white light when you're using these modalities, but you're actually unaware that you're actually infiltrating and hurting clients accidentally through the use of some of these modalities. And it's a fascinating deep dive that we all need to absolutely show discernment to, because the new age teachings at the moment that are coming out, this is a lot of this is hijacked under the false light agenda at the moment. And a lot of new modalities that are coming out are connected to this energy grid, which is false perceptions of they're being fed holographic projections as to what is new age earth. So it's and the more modalities that come out, the more we have to be more diligent and more discerning around this. Yeah.
Yeah, I love what you say about the discernment, because obviously, the new age movement and the world of new therapies, it's absolutely huge. It's an enormous and burgeoning and very diverse marketplace. And so if you're coming to that for the first time, how can you possibly know which modalities are rooted in something organic and genuinely helping you to come back to your sovereignty, your organic nature, really restoring what I call your divine blueprint here on earth as it's meant to be, and which of those are actually siphoning your energy, or as you say, chipping you, marking you, and putting you into the system even further, even though you had no idea it was happening. I'm sure you've got many, many ways to discern, and I just wanted to throw one in as an offering, which was some sort of very clear dividing line that I've noticed is if I notice that a healing modality or path is inviting you to look up or to be in a very expanded energetic of yourself, potentially at the cost of being grounded and embodied and in your body and on the earth, the chances are that whether or not this kind of harvesting is happening, it is going to be disempowering you, because our power really comes from fully integrating through our embodiment.
Yeah.
And at a cellular somatic level, and really grounding into the earth, where our true power is, our power to create abundance, our power to have healthy divine relationship. So my dividing line is that anything that's overly putting you into an expanded and higher realm, the chances are there may be a danger for you here. And particularly when perhaps the beings or practitioners of that realm are sort of exuding a kind of sickly one-dimensional light, which is all love. That's also a bit of a danger point, because healing is actually quite a messy process. And although we are love, our healing at the moment is all about dealing with trauma and dealing with our shadow. So it can be very easy to get, kind of dazzled by the beautiful spiritual light and love complex. But I consider this to be the sort of cotton candy face of a very dark network in some cases.
Yeah. And it's good you actually talk about that, because I actually had an experience last year with a coach, and where I was caught unaware in that exact same process. And I had a activation of, I'm going to call myself on my own stuff, of spiritual ego, where I wanted to go higher into the realms. And I wasn't yet fully dropping my spiritual ascension journey into the body. I was like, let's get more spiritual gifts. Let's get more spiritual gifts. I want to have the spiritual gifts so I can serve my clients on a high level. But what I wasn't doing was I was messing, or not messing is not the right word. I was experimenting in these fields, but not bringing the teachings into the body, if that makes sense. So I was accessing realms before my body could actually handle the energy that was coming in. And for me, when I was in this particular container, a really key indicator for me was, and it's very good you raise this point around looking up light and stuff like that, because that's exactly what was happening, was let's go on a galactic spaceship ride. Let's go up here and do these, journeys and things like that, where I'm very energetically sensitive. And during these journeys, I can usually feel and see in client sessions if there's beings around or from other races. And this particular time, I wasn't seeing anything. And which was a real indicator for me, going that I gave consent on a soul level to go on these journeys for my own ascension, but I was getting plugged into a network that I then later had to unplug from, if that makes sense. And that was a big wake-up call in my spiritual journey. This was about 8 or 9 months ago, where that's when I really had the biggest soul wake-up call, going, how many other times have I given away my sovereignty, my power, my energy to a godlike source, and I outsourced my own power? And anything that asks you to step away from your own self and your own divinity is not source. And that's where you have the potential 100% for false light, for programs, for implants, for anything that can corrupt and constrain our field. And my view as a healer is that we don't heal them. We hold the container and the energetic construct for them to activate their own healing abilities. And any modality should do the same thing, where we're actually calling in our own source, or we're activating our own source. So yes, we may be a Palladian and we may use that in our healing, but it's not which Palladian are you calling in. Are you calling in your own Palladian from that timeline, or are you calling in a bunch of other ones that you don't know? And that's another level of discernment there as well from that healing practice. So there's so much to learn when you play in these realms about energetic safety, about discernment. But in a general nutshell, if it doesn't feel good, if something feels off, that's your big indicator that something's not right. And then you have to begin the unplugging process of calling everything back. And that's when the fun begins, right?
Absolutely. So would you like to talk a little bit about, kind of very concrete practical signs that someone might look for who thinks they may have been plugged into a false light modality, and then how precisely you might get out again?
In that space, there's quite a few signs. I think it depends on what type of things you're plugged into. Often one sign, with an ex-lover as an example, if you're constantly thinking about them, you're plugged into their field. That's a very simple genetic connection that way. In modality connections, in the face of suddenly you may be very intuitive and suddenly you feel blocked and confused. that you were previously downloading information and suddenly you can't think past the next day. You got a lot of brain fog. Your energy reserves can suddenly start depleting really fast. Physical health may start to appear where issues where you've been previously healthy. Suddenly, every area of your life gets blown up. Your relationship breaks up, your marriage breaks down, all your clients disappear, your business collapses, your kids get sick, your animals get sick, cars blow up. That's a sign of you're getting, completely siphoned of all energy life force. And then if you see the person that you were studying with suddenly get all those things, it's because they're using your power to build their own energetic system so they can get stronger in that space. And for me, it was like when I went through this in a really hard lesson last year, and that's why I wanted to talk today about this piece, was the very first thing for me was I suddenly went from being extremely intuitive and extremely switched on in my intuitive gifts to suddenly I couldn't download anything. In client sessions, I couldn't see the visions that I could see before. My intuition was switched off. I started getting major stomach issues. My lymphatic system started swelling up quite badly, and I barely struggled to get out of bed, which then threw on to a nervous system disorder that started because my energy systems were constantly in a state of flight or flight because the plug-in in that sense was actually agitating my nervous system. Yeah. And then that, I began to get really, really unwell. And then I didn't realize at the time that what had happened, because I'm very good at, I will muscle test to check whether my field's under infiltration, whether the modalities I'm working with was under infiltration. And that's where my new initiation began, was I began to understand that some of these plugins, they use what I like to call an invisibility shield. They mask the technology in a cloaking device. So even a gifted spiritual healer like myself who can see that stuff, suddenly I couldn't see it. I was feeling the results of it, but I couldn't. Every test I was using, every tune, was like, there's nothing here. And I'm like, why do I feel so awful? And then that began my next initiation as to the types of implants that I use to keep us in the artificial network, to stop us accessing our own source. And then the unplugging process begins in that space. So, for me, in my own particular journey, that was the catalyst of my ultimate evolution to the next level of work that I bring in now. And I actually created a process which is actually called an unplugging session. So I actually will muscle test the client's fields from the quantum field down, all the layers, the auric fields, the chakras, the bodies. And I have about 50 different types of implants that these forces actually use in your system. And it took me quite a bit of time and thousands of hours in client sessions to uncover these technologies. And then I extract them through various means in processes. At the moment, I'm very heavily using my own Palladian self to do that extraction. And the things that I'm finding in clients' fields at the moment is absolutely extraordinary. And this is whether it's from the modalities that have caused these plugins, whether it is someone that is plugged into their field, because I want your life as an example, so they'll try and steal your life force energy, whether it's multidimensional trauma that's activating from previous timelines. It's everywhere in every single system. And our biggest job as a human, I feel, is to go into these systems and find them and unplug ourselves from whatever is not sovereign, whatever is not giving us our full power and our connection to source. And we keep going until we're free, right? But not from a place that we're broken, but from a place of total empowerment, going, my potential can be reached when my energy systems are at full capacity, when my chakras are running normally, when my light bodies are fully expanded, when I can feel God's source through my body. And that's how you know when you're clean, yeah? And what do most people spend a lot of their day doing? And I say this with absolute love and reverence. We're plagued by thoughts of grief, fear, anger, and rage a lot of the time. Is that our stuff, or is it the programs that are in our light bodies that are actually causing the distortions to stop us going, hey, I'm a beautiful soul. I have amazing gifts and powers I can bring into earth. If I wasn't feeling grief, what would I be doing? I'd be serving others and helping humanity. So it's not in their agenda to actually keep us happy, is it? They want us miserable and sad. And how that shows out in the bigger scale of things, the governments and all the things that have happened over the last couple of years, the media, they contribute to that artificial network of keeping our minds controlled in fear and loss and anger. And then why that's going on the bigger that perception of those people that agree with that, they vibrate at a frequency which then passes on to the rest of the humanity that don't. And the infiltration like a virus occurs. And that's when then more people start to go, love's too hard. I don't want to ascend because I can't feel the love. Yeah. And it's exciting to talk about. It's deep. You have to be willing to open up the mind to go, what does all this actually mean for me? Yeah, where do I start? And, for me, the first piece I always like to advise new clients is, how does your energy feel every day? First step is, are you feeling energetic or are you feeling completely depleted? And then ask yourself, what can you do to clean up your energy field? Because we interact with energies everywhere. And that can sit like a residue on our field, which makes us feel tired, depleted, not inspired, not going after the life that we want as well.
That's beautiful, Amelia. Thank you for sharing that. And I hope it's of inspiration to our listeners to really start to become aware of just how much infiltration there can be, and also that we do have the power to clear it. In my own personal shamanic practice, I'm meditating or journeying pretty much every day. And periodically, I feel these kind of implant layers coming up, and they're often associated with past traumas. And I think trauma is a great way in for these implants. If you're fully untraumatized being, there's no way this stuff can actually get in. And trauma is the crack that lets this in. And so trauma layers and these constructs, it's a very, very related theme. And also, if you are re-traumatized, it just allows more and more of it in, which is why, of course, it's a big agenda to keep re-traumatizing humanity in whatever way possible. So I'm very lucky because I have a shamanic practice and I'm able to see and release a lot of these things as I go along. But I'm just wondering, what might someone do if they want to reach out to you, for example, for empowerment and assistance on this? Someone who maybe doesn't feel like they have those tools or perspectives. How can you help, Amelia?
I would, send me a message on either my website, which is mystiquetemple.com, or my Facebook page, which is Amelia Jayne, to start that conversation. Then I'll actually have a brief chat with you. So what are you experiencing? What are you feeling? So we can get the best guidance to sort of start you in the process, because depends on where you're at in your spiritual ascension journey will depend on what work needs to be done. For some people, the first step is to start doing daily energetic clearing practice. And for me, I refer people quite often, if they're very early stages of their development, to start energy clearing work and chakra clearing work and auric field clearing work. And there's free resources on YouTube that you can look at and do daily. And then when you start practicing that as a practice, I'm like yourself, Diana, where I probably spend between 1 to 2 hours a day actually clearing my field and energetically clearing my chakras, my meridians, and my other fields, purely because I work with client sessions all day as well, and that energetic integrity is there. But that process also speeds up the revealing of the implants like you're talking about, because as we're expanding at each level of gift that we have, a light body opens. So we get the gift of what that light body brings, but we also have the trauma that comes with that. Then we have to clear the trauma, then we have to harmonize that into our body. The best way to do that is through cellular purging, detoxes, parasite cleanses, heavy metal cleanses, but then also the energetic clearing and the cellular shadow clearing as well. So that's a process that at every level of ascension we have to go through. When you're first starting out, simple is better, because you don't want to overload yourself. You just start gentle. We just, go listen to a good Reiki video or a chakra clearing video or something like that. Have that as a daily practice, and then tune into your body every day and go, how am I feeling today? And then if emotions come up or you feel trauma come up, that's the next gift of where do I go then? Yeah. And it's literally a step-by-step process as to each gift is a trigger. Each gift reveals a layer. But I'm a firm believer as well that soul will not give you what you can't handle. And it's just taking it a step at a time. Yeah.
Absolutely. I really agree with that, Amelia. And I think it's great to find simple practices. And I love that you also mentioned nutrition around clearing heavy metals or parasites or other things, because certainly in my experience, I've done a lot of energy work and then found myself to still be exhausted. And it was actually nutrition that was the missing key for me in that point. Hugely important to get all of these, because they're actually literally the physical manifestations of this kind of network and this infiltration, basically. And so we really need to get them out. And the world's in a very challenging place with pollution, EMFs, nanotech. we need to get a lot of stuff out of our bodies all the time. So this is a really big part of it too.
And fulvic acid and humic acid is really good, I find, in the mixture together. That's really good for supporting the detox of parasites and heavy metals. Your body just can't hold them in the system because they're so toxic to those things that they have to get eradicated out of your body. So in my own personal journey, I take fulvic acid and humic acid almost daily. I'm also taking DE earth capsules almost daily as well, because that helps them push what is activating out of the system. I've also initiated a new practice this year of full moon parasites in your body. We all have parasites because they cleanse up all the dense tissue when we, reproduce ourselves. But every full moon and new moon, the parasite activity wakes up. So it's not about just doing a parasite cleanse once every 6 months and hope for the best. It's 4 or 5 days before each full moon and new moon. You have to do your parasite activity to sort of clear that, because when the parasites wake up, the bacteria and the viruses wake up, the negative thought forms wake up, that opens up your energy field, which then can lead you to more infiltration in the system. And, it's, for me, I've done a simple, I use a sound healing device for that. I take my fulvic acid and my humic acid every day, the D earth capsules every couple of days. But real anti-parasitic foods are like raw carrots and garlic and not sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds. Simple things like that you can add into your diet, which support you, which are easy to implement. And constantly monitoring that. And then the next step further, where you may be in this investigation as well, is I'm now monitoring exact food reactions based on what's in them. So if I eat something and then I feel a bad reaction in my body, I go look at the labels and then go, I can't eat that anymore. And it's purifying your diet even more, because we have so much pollution and pesticides in the foods that we eat. I've just bought a pesticide cleaning device for my vegetables. So now when I have vegetables, it's like washing the pesticides away and all those parasites in that level too. So you can get really, really into it if you want to. But I'm in the viewpoint now that the body is the temple and that the ascension journey is through the body. The body has to be cleansed energetically, physically, emotionally, spiritually, to be able to bring in the codes of what we're meant to here to do as our mission. And one of the biggest things I find with clients is that their big question in life is, what is my soul purpose? What am I here to do? That doesn't come through if your body is blocked with junk and negative programming. It doesn't come through. Your spiritual mind up here will go, you can't handle what we've got to deliver to you. So we're going to not tell you until you start honoring your temple. And the quicker you do that, the faster that information comes in. And it's a journey for a lot of people, and it's not easy if you've had ill health. And recovery back to good health is so, so important.
Well, thank you, Amelia, for that amazing wisdom and for everything that we've shared today. I really hope that our listeners have really soaked up this wisdom about the false light construct and how, easy it is for us to be infiltrated. And, final message would be always exercise discernment on your spiritual path with whatever you're working with, and really ask yourself, am I being empowered to bring through my source, to bring through my gifts, to bring through my power? Or am I being encouraged to either look at some beautiful source of light, which may be very dazzling, but may be tricking me into plugging into something that's actually very negative to me, and potentially opening me up for more, disempowering thoughts and beliefs and energies. So that's a beautiful roadmap to take. So Amelia, Jayne, I want to say thank you so much. It's been a wonderful time to spend with you.
You're welcome.
And please do visit Amelia's website at mystiquetemple.com if you want to find out more about her work. And in the meantime, you can find my podcasts and blogs and monthly challenge, as well as my womb awakening practitioner training at sacredwomanawakening.com. So I look forward to seeing you at the next Womb to Womb podcast. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe. For more podcasts, blog articles, free masterclasses, and womb practitioner certification courses, go to www.sacredwomanawakening.com.